Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am back, and I am Bryson Carver, as always. I was out yesterday because of a little issue. I had my wisdom teeth removed on Tuesday, just to cut to the chase. If you want to see my high state, if you will, you could check out, as you see right there on the bottom. You can follow me at Carving It Up Podcast on Instagram, at Carving It Up Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Bryson Carver. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are watching on YouTube right now. But yeah, had my wisdom teeth removed on Tuesday. It was not pretty. The surgery went great. I'm talking about my reaction to it. Wasn't pretty, as nobody's is. So you guys can check that out for yourselves on your own time. But first, we got a lot to talk about. I'm gonna dive into the Dak Prescott situation because there's been some stuff happen between he and the Cowboys and just around the league since I last was on the show. So Dak, also the NBA has a real issue right now with their officiating. And you know me, I don't like to blame refs. I don't like to say, oh, the ref is the reason they lost the game. The ref's this. I don't do that. I don't do that in the show. But there is a problem. And I'll discuss that later on in the show, as well as Blake Griffin was bought out, by the Detroit Pistons today. I will tell you the best landing spot for him. That is all coming up next. But let's start with Dak. Dak Prescott is still in a contract battle with the Dallas Cowboys. A report came out, I should say a doctored report from a great reporter, Jane Slater. I trust about two sources in this entire situation. Jane Slater, Ed Werder. That's it. Mike Fisher to an extent, but those are the two that I trust more than anybody because they're as plugged in as any reporter. Jane Slater reported the other day, I believe she was on the Dan Patrick show, and she said Dak is asking for under Patrick Mahomes money. So people took that as he's asking for $43 million, $44 million. Oh, my God. Oh, he's going to wreck the salary cap, and the Dallas Cowboys are just going to be screwed for the next. And then Jane Slater went on Twitter, said, I didn't say he was asking for the ballpark of Mahomes' money. She said very specifically, okay, that the Cowboys and Dak, that the negotiations were around that $35 million a year mark. Now, whether you think that's too much or too little for Dak or just right, I think 35 is just right for me personally. I wouldn't pay him anywhere over what he's going to make this year on the franchise tag, because he's going to be on the franchise tag. He is. He's playing under the franchise tag for a second straight season. That's just going to happen. They're not going to come to a long-term deal. But as far as the long-term, I wouldn't pay him more than 37. 35 seems like just right. Whether you think that that's the case or not, that's where they're at right now. He's not asking for under Patrick Mahomes' money. The issue here is guaranteed money, because the contract they offered him last year, the contract Jerry Jones offered him, the guaranteed money was way under Carson Wentz, way under Jared Goff. Okay. Also, Dak wants a 4-year deal. I think that's been one of the more consistent reports. One of the things we know for sure. Dak wants a 4-year deal. Dallas wants a 5-year deal. Okay, so they're going to have to come to some sort of compromise in there. Maybe Dak gives them the 5 years, but they give him more guaranteed money. You know, maybe that's the resolution, or that kind of deal in general. But I was thinking about this, and I got to be honest. I was watching another show the other day. It's a TV show, radio show, simulcast, and I got kind of mad when I watched it because I was thinking, dang you! I was saying this for the last 3-4 months. I've been saying this for 3 or 4 months on the show. And I'm gonna name drop Colin Cowherd, man. You had to steal my thunder, because I've been saying this for 3-4 months on the show, because I've said, okay, here's the perfect scenario for Dak Prescott, the Kirk Cousins route. It's really the perfect scenario for any player. Is it aggravating as crap for 2 years, the franchise tag? Yeah, dang right it is, because you don't have the long-term security. You don't know. Nobody saw that gruesome injury coming for Dak, but that was the risk he ran in playing the franchise tag last year. Now, the good news is he's in the facility, according to multiple sources in Dallas. He's been in the facility every day, working out. I think they even say he's running now. So, not even 5 months after the injury, Dak Prescott's running. Okay, and we're still 6 months out of the season. He will be more than ready to go. For the start of the 2021 NFL season. That's not the issue. The issue is that they can't come to a long-term deal, him and the Cowboys. So he's already got $31.4 million that he made last year from the franchise tag. This year, it's going to be $37 million on the franchise tag. It's going to up. Okay. Dak and his agent, Todd France, need to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this franchise tag this year. We're just going to stop negotiating unless we can come to the perfect contract. We're going to play this franchise tag out. Okay. Chances of Dak having another injury like he had last year are slim to none. Knock on wood, God forbid that happens again. So Dak plays this year, okay? Puts up yet another good statistical season. He's statistically, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think he's around 6 or 7. I think the top 5 is Mahomes and Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. I'd probably put Tom Brady at 4. Or actually, no, I'd put Deshaun Watson at 4, Brady 5, Josh Allen 6, and then you get in that category of Dak and other guys. I'd put Dak right around 7, okay? So Dak puts up another good statistical season. Dallas is in a crappy division, the NFC East. Washington doesn't have a quarterback. Philly may or may not have a quarterback, but they got a whole lot of issues in that organization. And the Giants, I like the direction the Giants are going. I said in this show around November of last season, I like Joe Judge a lot. I didn't like the hire last year. I was like, Joe Judge? I thought he did a really, really good job considering the circumstances with the quarterback situation. Giants were in a lot of close games they could have easily won. Okay, they should have beaten they probably should have beaten the Bears. They were in a tight ball game against the LA Rams, who were a win away from the NFC Championship game. They should have beaten the Dallas Cowboys, if we're being honest. And so that they were in some tight games early in the season. So say they win those 3 games, New York Giants go 9-7 with a winning record, and that's more than enough to win them the NFC East. And they won they beat Washington twice. The team that won the NFC East, the Washington football team, Giants beat them twice. So I like the direction that they're going. Not that I don't like the direction Washington's going. They just don't have a quarterback today. But you look at Dallas, they don't have the best roster of any of the teams. I still think that would probably be the Giants. But you have the best quarterback. That's, nobody, even Dak's biggest critics would not deny that. Yeah, he's the best quarterback in the East. Okay. Best receiving core in the division. I think it's a little overrated receiving core across the NFL and across the NFC. You get Tampa Bay and Kansas City, the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl. Heck, I think Green Bay is just as good as Dallas as far as the receiving core. But you do have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson, Michael Gallup. Now, the offensive line has deteriorated. So has Zeke. So that's working against Dak Prescott. And then the defense has got awful. So, but Dallas will likely be the favorites, as it seems like they are every year, to win the NFC East. Today, I would pick them. I would probably pick them to go around 9-7, 10-6, and then we'll see what they do in the playoffs at that point. But here's the thing. Dak put up a good statistical season, get Dallas to the playoffs, win at least one playoff game. Okay? And then you hit the open market, and it's all up to you. Because Dallas, they can franchise tag him a 3rd year, but that'd be in excess of $50 million, and they're not going to do that. Okay, that's just outrageous. Nobody, under the current salary cap, nobody's making $50 million a season. So at that point, Dak is a quote unquote true free agent. He can choose wherever he wants to go. Okay, whoever needs a quarterback. There's 2 teams out there that I believe are going to need a quarterback next year. Number 1 is the Miami Dolphins. You guys know I liked Tua a lot coming out of the draft. I thought if he was healthy, that was, certainly a question mark at the time, and even now possibly. If he was healthy, I thought Tua was the best quarterback in the division. Or coming out of last year's draft, I thought if he wasn't, Justin Herbert would be, and we saw Justin Herbert win Rookie of the Year. He was great. I was skeptical at best about Joe Burrow, and he proved me wrong. Although I do think he's in a crappy situation in Cincinnati. I haven't backed off that because that's just facts. It's a bad roster, bad coaching staff, bad ownership, and a tough division. So he's got a lot working against him in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow does. But Tua, you hear guys, and I don't think Mac Jones is going to be that successful in the NFL. But you have Devontae Smith. You have Jalen Waddle. 2 guys that played with Tua and Mac Jones the last 2 seasons at Alabama. And when they were asked who was the better quarterback, without hesitation, they said, oh, Mac Jones. Okay, that's interesting. Then we have reports coming out of Miami 2 weeks after their season ends. And remember, the Dolphins were, all they had to do, they were playing the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo had nothing to play for. Nothing. Okay, they had already locked themselves into the 2 seed. They had nothing to play for. Miami has everything to play for. If they win, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, they're done. And Tua plays awful. Okay, and he had some stinkers last year. First start against the Rams, he wasn't very good. He wasn't good against Denver. He was okay against Kansas City, could have been better. Had some turnovers. But even the Dolphins players, reports came out that they said, oh, yeah, we wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick to start over Tua for the whole season. The locker room did not like that decision at all by Brian Flores, who I think is a great coach, to sit Ryan Fitzpatrick. I believe after winning 3 straight games, 3 straight games, they're on a winning streak, and they bench Ryan Fitzpatrick for Tua. And they missed the playoffs. And how many games did Tua get benched? Fitzpatrick comes in and either saves the day or comes darn close. Like last year, look, Fitz is a backup. He is. But there were some games last year where it's like, oh, yeah, he's a better quarterback than Tua. Like it was pretty obvious. So you look at the Miami Dolphins, who play in the AFC East with a New England Patriots team that is devoid of talent, to say the least. I think Belichick, to a certain degree, at least as a head coach, I think he's a defensive mastermind. Belichick, let me make sure I'm very clear about this. Bill Belichick is arguably the greatest defensive coach of all time. But as far as the greatest head coaches, I don't even think he's in the conversation. I'll take Bill Walsh. I'll take Vince Lombardi. I'd even take Chuck Noll, Tom Landry. Okay, like some of these guys, Paul Brown, like some of these guys changed the game of football with their coaching. Okay, so you see Belichick, who's without Tom Brady in his career, has coached 8 seasons. He's missed the playoffs 75% of the time. That's concerning. Okay, you look at the Jets. Come on, man. Nobody takes the Jets seriously. They're going to move off Sam Darnold. They're going to draft Zach Wilson at BYU. I like Zach Wilson. I think he'll be a decent quarterback in the league. Who knows? I don't know if it's like a massive upgrade for Sam Darnold, who I think is still a solid quarterback. I think the Jets have a thing for wasting talent, kind of like with Detroit and Cincinnati to a certain degree. But there's that. So nobody takes the Jets seriously. Jets are not even in the conversation to win the AFC East next year unless somehow they land a trade for Deshaun Watson. Okay, Buffalo's the only powerhouse in the East. Like Buffalo, that's a dang good football team in upstate New York, okay? You got Josh Allen. You got Sean McDermott, who I think is a great coach, really good defense. Stephon Diggs changed the offense, okay? So, their season ended because they ran into Kansas City. And Kansas City bum rushed everybody up until they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. So, Buffalo's a great football team. They went 13-3. That's a great team. Dak could go to Miami, replace Tua, where you have the defense. They're building the offensive line. They're building the receiving core. They've gotten better and better over the last few years. You've got the coach. In the division, you don't have to worry about New England, and you don't have to worry about the Jets. Your only competition is Buffalo. As opposed to, and you say, well, what about the NFC East? The NFC East is the worst division in football. True. But first of all, you have Jerry Jones as the general manager. We see how that's worked out, paying the wrong guys. Jalen Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, DeMarcus Lawrence, Amari Cooper, just to name a few. Okay. Mike McCarthy is the head coach. Yeah, we see Mike McCarthy, his track record without Aaron Rodgers is not exactly impressive. Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, for that matter, is not exactly impressive. Like when he doesn't have a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, he struggles, to say the least. So you have that. And even if Dallas, say they win the division the next 3 years, considering how the NFC East is, arguably the worst division in football, for the next 2 years at least, because he'll be around for at least the next 2, you got to worry about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. We got to see what the Saints do at the quarterback position. Who knows? Maybe I still think Jameis Winston could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He just needs to clean up the turnovers. If Jameis cleans up the turnovers, he's a starting quarterback. Look at his numbers. Passing yards, passing touchdown. He's a good quarterback. He just needs to clean up the turnovers. Okay? What are the Saints going to do at quarterback? You look at the Rams today. Okay? a Rams team that was a win away from the NFC Championship game got better at the quarterback position, a position that people said was like the one thing that held them back from being contenders. So they got better. They added Matthew Stafford. You got to worry about them. Okay, you got to worry about the San Francisco 49ers. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I like Jimmy Garoppolo a lot. Okay, if he stays healthy, they got to the Super Bowl and were a missed throw by Jimmy G away from beating Kansas City. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter over Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the mighty Chiefs. Okay, you look at who else? I don't think Russell Wilson's leaving Seattle, at least this year. So you got to worry about him. So, by the way, Arizona's getting better and better. They added J.J. Watt. Okay, so NFC's loaded, man. And then you look at the AFC. There's Kansas City Chiefs. There's the Buffalo Bills in your own division. And then it's a lot of Indianapolis. Are they really a contender with Carson Wentz? Okay, Tennessee's nice in the regular season. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs because if your best player, great as he is a running back, Derrick Henry, you're not going far in the playoffs. You look at teams, Denver, come on. Vegas Raiders, great offense, garbage defense. So in the AFC, you got to worry about two teams, Kansas City, Buffalo. In the NFC, it's Tampa Bay and Green Bay and Seattle and San Francisco and even Arizona to a certain extent. And the Rams, there's all these different teams you got to get through to get to the Super Bowl. So the road to the Super Bowl is quicker and easier to quite honestly, if we're being real, through Miami. Dak, play on the franchise tag this year. Make your money, $37 million. Get out of Dallas. Go to a team in Miami that clearly has the right head coach, clearly has the right general manager, gets better and better and better every game you see. They just have one weakness, quarterback. Now, maybe Tua comes in and shocks us all and has a great sophomore season. Jared Goff in 2016 was considered a bust. He was terrible. Comes back in 2017 and the Rams make the playoffs, and he plays really well. And then they go to the Super Bowl the next year. Now, the difference in Jared Goff and Tua is Jared Goff got a new head coach, Sean McVay, who's an offensive mastermind and can make anybody work. That's why I think Jared Goff's going to struggle with WrestleMania Dan Campbell in Detroit. Like, the coaching matters. We see that all the time in the league. So I think that's the best situation for Dak Prescott. Get the franchise tag this year. I get it. It sucks. It's not the long-term security you want. You get the franchise tag, you make $37 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of bread. Get that money, have a great statistical season, win at least one playoff game after winning the division, and then it's up to you. You go to Miami, you got two teams in that entire conference you got to worry about. The Chiefs, the Bills. Outside of that, add Dak Prescott to Miami. Worst case scenario, they're the third best team in the AFC. 100%. I mean, if they almost made the playoffs with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua, I think they'll be fine with Dak Prescott. And by fine, I mean Super Bowl contenders. So that's where I sit today. Miami would be a great fit. By the way, it's a great city. The weather's amazing. Okay, if you get home field advantage, that's huge in Miami. So I'm telling you, I think that'd be a good fit for my man Rain Dakota Prescott. So let me talk about this issue in the NBA. Let me back up. So on this show, I've always been a proponent of, if you lose and there's a controversial call in the game, don't blame the refs. Okay? One play, for example, I use this all the time. The New Orleans Saints and the LA Rams in the NFC Championship game a couple years back, and people are like, oh, the Saints lost the game because they didn't call a pass interference. Duh, it was pass interference. Nobody, anyone with eyes could tell that was clearly pass interference, and the ref should have thrown the flag. There's actually two flags, pass interference and illegal helmet-to-helmet contact. There were two flags, and none were thrown. But what people fail to mention is that the Saints have the Rams have one timeout. There's 2 minutes left, and the Saints throw the ball, which stops the clock, free timeout. They run the ball, and so the Rams use their timeout. Keep in mind, the game's tied at this point. And then on the play where the pass interference should have been called, they threw it again. So instead of there being under a minute left and you're kicking the field goal to take the lead, There's a minute and a half and change, and which give the Rams. By the way, Saints make the field goal. It's like, okay, despite the bad call, hey, we're in the lead. We get one stop. We're going to the Super Bowl in Atlanta this year. And you couldn't get the stop. The Rams go down. They kick a field goal, tie the game, go to overtime. And a lot of times we saw it with the Tuck rule, right? A lot of times we see if a team gets screwed by a bad call, like they don't get the ball back. Like it seems to always happen that way. Saints got the ball to start overtime. They won the coin toss, and Drew Brees threw an interception. And the Rams got it. Short field goal, game over. You didn't lose that because of the refs. You lost because you didn't take advantage of the opportunities presented in front of you. So I don't like blaming refs, okay? But in the NBA, there's a clear problem with officiating because guys are doing the simplest things and getting technical fouls, like just the smallest things in the world. For example, you have JJ Redick a couple weeks back. It's a Sunday night game against I think it was the game where they came back against the Celtics from 24 down. There's a foul call inside by the official on the far baseline, and JJ Redick's got the ball in his hands. He doesn't like the call, and he kind of you kind of spin the ball when you pass it right. It's hard to do with a mic right in front of my face, but spins the ball a certain way, kind of throws it real hard in the ref's direction, and he gets thrown out of the game. Okay. There was a game the other night between my Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trail Blazers where Robert Covington argues with the call and immediately, boop, tech. It's like, what happened to letting the players voice their... Here's my thing. If I'm an NBA ref, if you're thinking about possibly teeing them up, think about this. Okay. Are they getting personal? Are they being downright just straight up disrespectful? If they're saying that's a BS call, maybe some blankety blanks in there, that's trash, whatever. Let them voice their frustrations. Yep. Do you expect if you believe there's a bad call against you, is your first initial reaction to, oh, well, whatever. Yeah, okay. No, you're gonna protest, you're gonna argue with the call made against you. Okay? So a guy's gonna go up to an official and voice their frustrations. Draymond Green does it all the time, right? But you got to let them voice their frustrations and not just if they say, oh, blank. Oh, D. If a guy calls you, the B word or calls you, just like something really bad, like just something just downright disrespectful, yeah, tee him up. That's you can't do that. But if he's just arguing with the call, if he's just like, man, that's a BS call or this, that, and the other, can't give him a technical for that. Come on, man. Donovan Mitchell argues with a call for 5 seconds, gets tossed out of the game the other night when the Jazz played the 76ers. It's like, dude, like, relax. And we see, you see some of those tapes back in the days of Bird and the days of Jordan where if guys disagree with the call, them and the refs would get into like shouting matches. They'd just be up in each other's face, yelling at each other. There might be a T at the end, but at the end of the day, player got his money's worth and the ref got his money's worth. So they're just like kind of jawing back and forth instead of, I hate to use this word, but soft officials just go, okay, technical. What? And look, like I said, refs are never the reason you lose a game. They're never I don't think there's ever the reason. If this certain play had gone differently, you may see a different outcome. But there's never one single reason you won or lost the game. There's a lot of plays during a basketball game. There's 48 minutes of basketball. A 1, 2, or 3 second moment is, it can be the difference, but it's not the reason. There's other reasons, the other opportunities you had you didn't take advantage of, right? Like I'm a big proponent of that. No excuses. But at the same time, the NBA, now, and I think this is what they need to do. They pay the refs just like, these organizations pay the players. If a referee makes a bad call, he should be fined. Simple as that. If he makes a bad call in a big spot in a tight ball game, he should be fined. If we're going to have accountability with players for not being disrespectful to officials and things of that nature, which I agree with. If you're disrespectful, you should get a technical foul. You should. You can't just be cursing an official out and just disrespecting them as a human being. You can't do that. It's disrespectful. But at the same time, if a referee makes a bad call, and say they even go to review, because we see that the coaches challenge in the NBA now, even if they go to review and they still get the call wrong, they need to get fined. Now, suspended, that's then you're really going into a slippery slope. It's like, okay, what's worthy of a suspension, what's not? Like it's really tough at that point. But at the same time, man, like we got to sit back and we got to be honest with ourselves, and that accountability goes both ways. Okay, players can't be disrespectful, but officials can't toss a guy just for arguing for 2 seconds with a call or saying that's blank. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, let's not be so soft and so just, everything offends us. Like, if a guy says something, okay, if he's disrespectful, calls you certain names that we all know you shouldn't call another human being, okay. But if he's just arguing with the call and says that's a trash call or you're trash or whatever, come on, man. Now, if he keeps dragging on and on and on and doesn't stop, then that's where you need to hand out the tea. But if he's just arguing for 10 seconds, you're going back and forth. It's just conversation. That's what we don't do enough, and that's what our politicians don't do enough. They just argue and then they go, but they're both ways and they hate each other, right? Instead of talking it out, coming together, coming to some kind of compromise, right? So let's make sure that the relationship between NBA refs and NBA players are not like Democrats and Republicans. Okay, let's try to come together to some sort of resolution, some sort of agreement. And nobody gets a tag, nobody gets suspended. Like I hate to be. I understand you're not going to have peace and harmony 24/7. That's life, but the fact that they can't come to this, some sort of agreement. Like, if you're disrespectful, you get a tech. But if you're just arguing with the call and you and the official are having a discussion about it, that's not worthy of giving the man a technical foul and giving the other team a free throw in the ball. Like it's just not. So that's where I stand on this situation. Maybe I'm wrong, but if an official makes a bad call, he should get fined, just like if a player is disrespectful, or if an official tosses a guy out of the game when he shouldn't have been tossed. Like, there needs to be accountability. If we're going to show, if we want the players to be accountable, then the officials need to be accountable as well. Mark Jackson, former coach of my Warriors, he was great broadcaster with ESPN for years now. I love what he says. He's like, look, if you're going to make a call, but be consistent. If this is a foul on this end, then it also needs to be a foul over here. Like, you got to be consistent with your calls. So that's what I think the NBA needs to do. Now, sticking the NBA, I love this new All-Star format that they started back in 2018 and started broadcasting this new All-Star draft in 2019, where you have the 2 All-Star captains, the 2 leading vote getters in either conference. Once again, it was LeBron James in the West, and then this time the East, it was Kevin Durant. Now, unfortunately, Kevin Durant is not going to be able to play because of his ongoing hamstring injury. He is not going to play in the All-Star game. So as far as starters, he was replaced by Jason Tatum. But if you look at the teams here, Team LeBron, okay, so he drafted Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2-time MVP, Steph Curry, 2-time MVP, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, my man Dame Dalla, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, Domantas Sabonis, Ben Simmons. You look at who Kevin Durant drafted. He took Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, the MVP frontrunner in my mind, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, who will not play, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, Julius Randle, Nikola Vucevic, and Zion Williamson. So that's his team. So those are the 2 teams. The All-Star game will be on Sunday night, I believe at 8 p.m. Eastern on TNT. Before the game, you're going to have the skills competition and the 3-point shooting competition. And then at halftime, we're going to have the dunk contest. Now, in recent years, at least since 2016, when the dunk contest was just an all-time classic, last year's was good, but we've had some pretty subpar dunk contests. I mean, just some, one year it was like Hamidou Diallo won it, and then Glenn Robinson III won it. Like, it was just kind of like nobody really knows who these guys are. But, 2016, you had Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon just going back and forth in Toronto, and it was crazy. Speaking of Toronto, by the way, my man Drizzy Drake dropping the heat today. at midnight, dropping 3 tracks. I mean, with Rick Ross as well. Man, that was amazing. But back to basketball. We had I think we're gonna have a great game because you got, of course, LeBron. We know he represents. But you've got Giannis, Steph. Now the Steph thing is what intrigues me the most, because Steph and LeBron have never played together, and I've said on this show before that I think the best possible duo in the NBA would be LeBron James and Steph Curry, because you got LeBron, who's easily the best passer in the league, easily, and Steph, who is not just the best shooter in the league, he's the greatest shooter of all time. So you put those two guys together. Now, of course, we all know the All-Star game goes 3 quarters. There's basically no defense, a lot of alley-oops, 3-pointers from half court, just kind of playing around. Then once you get to the fourth quarter, okay, it's game time now. We're playing some defense. And the fourth quarter of last year's All-Star game was incredible. It was amazing. With this new target score thing, with the new rules honoring Kobe Bryant, where the team in front, say the score is 108 to 106. Say Team LeBron's up 108 to 106. Then going into the fourth quarter, there's a target score. And the target score, because Team LeBron is 108 and they're in front, the target score is 132. So 132 and 108, what's the difference in that? 24, honoring Kobe Bryant. So the target score for both teams is 132. It's, whatever the team who's in front, whatever their score is, it's that plus 24. That's the target score. So it adds kind of a pickup basketball feel to it, which I love. You get the best players in the world playing pickup ball. Isn't that what we've always wanted the All-Star game to be like? I think the NBA just did an incredible job with that new rule. But I look at the teams. By the way, I think both guys did a good job drafting last night. I thought, Giannis got ridiculed last year because he was terrible. I mean, LeBron was getting all the best players. It is the All-Star game, so all of them are great players. But Giannis had all these different guys available and just passed them up. And LeBron's like, okay, thank you very much. LeBron didn't want to draft Kawhi Leonard, and Giannis wouldn't draft Kawhi, so he's like, crap, I guess I got to take Kawhi. I know he's rivals, but if Giannis ain't going to draft him, I guess I'll draft him. And Kawhi ended up winning, ironically, the All-Star Game MVP last year, which also, by the way, is named after the late Kobe Bryant. But I'm looking forward to this one. I wish KD was playing. KD hasn't played an All-Star game since 2019. Of course, he didn't play last year because of the Achilles issue. Right now, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. Hopefully, this isn't a recurring theme we see with Kevin Durant, with these nagging injuries that we see sometimes with superstars in the later part of their career. But I'll say this. I look at both teams' starting lineups, okay? And I like Team LeBron's starting lineup more. Because, of course, you got LeBron James. KD's not going to play. So you got Giannis, the back-to-back MVP, and as far as I'm concerned, considering what he's got to work with in Milwaukee, I like Drew Holiday. That's about it. Considering what he's got to work with in Milwaukee, I think Giannis is an MVP candidate, again, that nobody is really talking about, because we all know how the media works. If once they get tired of you, you're no longer going to be in the MVP conversation. Ask LeBron James. I mean, just think about this. LeBron, the second greatest basketball player of all time, has not won an MVP in 7 years. We've had Westbrook win it, and James Harden, as great as he was, win it. Steph won back-to-back. Was certainly deserving of the second one. LeBron wasn't really in the running for the first Steph MVP, but the fact that he hasn't won an MVP in 7 years is just insanity. It's crazy. But you got Giannis, 2-time MVP, Steph, 2-time MVP, LeBron, 4-time MVP, Luka, future MVP, and then Nikola Jokic, the best passing big man we've seen since, I don't know, Wilt. I mean, people don't know this. Wilt was a great passing big man. And then you look at Team Durant, Bradley Beal, leading scorer, but Bradley Beal's not really in the MVP discussion because the Wizards are terrible. Joel Embiid is the lead guy in my view, and a lot of people's view, for the MVP this year. I don't really have a clear-cut MVP today. Certainly Embiid's there, LeBron, James Harden, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. Those are the kind of the guys we're hearing the most, and I believe Giannis is in there as well. But you have Kawhi Leonard, who's great in All-Star games. Kyrie, who won an All-Star game MVP back in, I think, 2014, I think it was. You have Jason Tatum. I believe this is his second All-Star game. So I like Team Durant's starting lineup. not near as much as I do LeBron's. But then we get to the bench, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, KD is some firepower off the bench. So I think Dame, who should be a starter, you heard my rant a couple weeks ago. Dame Lillard should be a starter over Luka. I love Luka, not as much as I do Dame, though. Okay, Damian Lillard should have been a starter alongside of Steph Curry, but that's neither here nor there. Dame and James Harden are going to kind of neutralize each other, right? Damian Lillard will be LeBron's sixth man. James Harden will be Kevin Durant's sixth man. They'll neutralize each other. They're both great scorers, great players. But then you look at, down the list. Who's the second best player on LeBron's bench? Okay, I would probably argue it's Chris Paul or Paul George. Okay, that doesn't stack up, in my view, to Devin Booker. Chris Paul is more valuable to the Phoenix Suns than Devin Booker. He's not a better player in an all-star game. So Devin Booker over anybody that Team LeBron has, at least second on that bench. And then you look at Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's putting up numbers this year, man. Donovan Mitchell, all he's doing is leading the Utah Jazz to the best record in basketball. And by the way, it's funny to me. And shout out to my guy James overseas from the Across the Pond podcast. I was on his show a couple weeks ago. Diehard Utah Jazz fan, and I thought about him last night when this happened because he's a Utah fan. And Rudy Gobert shouldn't be an all-star. He's not an all-star. But you look at Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, the two Utah Jazz players. Jazz have the best record in basketball. And when it comes down to it, when LeBron and KD are drafting, who are the last two guys available? The two Utah Jazz players from the team with the best record in basketball. Those are the last two guys left. And, LeBron kind of tried to justify it last night. He's like, hey, look, we didn't play in video games growing up. We didn't play with the Utah Jazz. Even when they had Stockton and Malone, we didn't play with the Utah Jazz. It's like, that's true. I don't really play with the Utah Jazz, playing 2K. No disrespect to I love Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell's a superstar. I think Gobert's a great defensive player. I do think they should trade him because I think he's kind of stunning the growth of Donovan Mitchell and, possibly holding them back from putting more good pieces around him. And plus his contract is just insane. But then you have Julius Randle, first-time All-Star this year. Julius Randle's having a great year. Okay, Zion, nobody's talking about him, I guess, because, again, if the media gets tired of you, they just kind of stop covering you. Zion Williamson's having a great year. He's an absolute all-star this year. Kevin Durant's got him. And so Ben Simmons, as far as Team LeBron, Ben Simmons defensively, really good defensive player. He can't shoot. And the all-star game is a lot about shooting. Domantas Sabonis is having a good year. He should have been an all-star initially. He ended up being a replacement player. But then Rudy Gobert, again, defense doesn't matter in the all-star game. So, what's Rudy Gobert really going to do? Paul George has been really good in past all-star games. I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't he win the all-star game Westbrook won it in 2016. I think Paul George was in the running in 2016 to win the all-star game MVP. So Paul George is good in all-star games. He's trash in fourth quarters, but that's neither here nor there. But I think this is going to be an all-time great all-star game because I like Team LeBron's starting lineup more, but I like Team Durant's bench more. So I think now here's what I think is going to be interesting. Who's the closing lineup for these guys? Who's the closing lineup? I think, okay, you look at Team LeBron, of course, LeBron, Steph Curry. I think Chris Paul's going to be on the floor. I think Steph Curry and Chris Paul will be on the floor simultaneously because we all know the relationship LeBron and CP3 have. So you got the two guards. I think Jokic will be out there for size, and Giannis. That's what I think is going to happen. And then, with Team Durant, who's their closing lineup? Well, Kevin Durant's not playing, so he's out. I think it's going to be Kyrie, James Harden, Embiid, Kawhi. I think Devin Booker's going to be on the floor. So that's what I think's kind of interesting about this whole thing is who are the closing lineups going to be. I can't wait for the All-Star game. 3-point shooting contest, I'm looking forward to seeing Steph and Devin Booker. I would be stunned if because you look at the 3-point shooting contest this year, really good shooters, but there's only two guys I can actually see winning it, and that's Steph Curry and Devin Booker because both have done it in the past and both have gotten crazy hot in the 3-point shooting competition. So it's going to be one of those two that wins it. Skills competition, I don't really watch that. It's fun, but it's not it's not the dunk contest of years past. And then you look at the dunk contest at halftime. I'll watch. Anthony Simon has 2 dunks on the year. Kind of guys that not a whole lot of people know in the dunk contest this year. I wish Zion was in it because I think Zion would be incredible in the dunk contest. John Morant, the first and second pick in 2019. If those 2 guys were in it, man, that'd be a show. But I don't think the dunk contest is going to be great this year. But as far as the All-Star game, I think it's going to be a great show of the best players in the world and a close game at that. So before I get to Blake Griffin and close out the show, there was kind of a story going around a little bit over the last week, and that's Drew Brees. Now, I've said for a year, I went back to even before the whole Drew Brees scandal happened this past summer. I said around March or April, I said, he's got this deal with NBC. He's going to retire after the 2020 season. Now, he still has not announced that yet. We're almost 2 months removed from the Saints' playoff loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the divisional round. And, we kind of saw it like Jay Glazer before the game on Fox Sports said, hey, this is it. This is Drew Brees' last game in the Superdome. This is it. And we see after the game, Drew is leaving the field, and he turns around and gives one last look to the field at, his home stadium for the previous 15 years. It's like this emotional moment. He looks back at the field, and then after the game, he's on the field with Tom Brady. Drew's kids are out there. Drew's wife is out there. And it's like, yeah, he's done. He's going to retire. Nearly 2 months later, he still isn't retired. And by the way, the report also came out by Adam Schefter. This is the best as far as sources go. Adam Schefter reports that Drew Brees was that close to retiring after the 2019 season. He said that Drew was in the locker room with this because the Saints coaching staff coached the Pro Bowl. They coached the NFC roster at the Pro Bowl. They said, Adam reported, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, the whole Saints coaching staff was in a room, like one of the back rooms in the locker room, crying because they were all under the assumption that Drew's going to retire. And Adam Schefter reported, this is crazy, Adam Schefter reported that if Drew Brees had retired in 2019, you know whose replacement would have been? Tom Brady. Tom Brady was going to go to the New Orleans Saints if Drew Brees retired. So he didn't retire, of course. We all know that. And so Tom just said, okay, I'll still go to the NFC South. I'll just go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that had been really interesting. Tom Brady in New Orleans with Sean Payton. But, of course, it worked out pretty well in Tampa Bay. They won the Super Bowl. But Drew has still not announced he's retiring. And then we see this video. He's in Los Angeles. And, of course, we all know the story. He and Justin Herbert were set to meet with Tiger Woods for a photo shoot. And Tiger Woods, unfortunately, was in a very, very serious car accident. And, again, thank God that he's okay. I saw a report earlier today that he was unconscious when these first responders arrived at the scene. So we got to see how that situation, kind of plays out. But Drew was in LA for that in Southern California. And there's this video of him pushing, I think it was a tire. I don't remember the video that well, but him like pushing a tire, like, one of these workouts where you're grabbing a tire and you're pushing it. And Drew Brees' trainer posts that on social media. It's like, why is he doing that? Why is Drew Brees' trainer posting that on Instagram? Now, it could just be he's showing, hey, look at Drew Brees. He's 41 years old and he's still, but we kind of know, Drew's a pretty good athlete. He's 41. He's not 71, 81. He's still a good athlete. It doesn't mean, he's an NFL quarterback at this point. But now there have been some things that have came out that said Drew, his retirement announcement could have been postponed because of Tiger's crash, and it would have been, insensitive for him to just, for the whole Tiger situation to happen. And Drew said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm retiring." It's like, hey, wait, we got to deal with the Tiger issue first. So that certainly comes into play. But free agency starts in a week and a half, and so the Saints have got to know, Drew, are you done, or because we need to commit to either Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, or somebody else. We need to know, are you done or not? So we'll know, and I think we'll know in the next 12 days. I think free agency starts March 17th. So, of course, we're 12 days away. So about a week and a half. So I said I believe that 2020 hopefully, guys, there we go. Hopefully, guys can still hear me. So we just lost connection for a second, but just the final point. He was bought out by the Detroit Pistons. Blake Griffin was bought out by the Detroit Pistons today. So the question is, what's the best landing spot for him? I've heard the Lakers thrown out there. I've heard the Nets, kind of the usual suspects. Yeah, even my Golden State Warriors, I wouldn't be mad. They could use a little bit of size. And Blake's a pretty decent shooter at this point in his career. He's certainly not the high-flying dunker he was in his prime in LA. But I thought about it, and I was like, why not a Clippers reunion? Why not have him come off the bench and be your Montrezl Harrell? Now, he's not, again, he's a better shooter than Montrezl Harrell. Is he as good defensively? Montrezl isn't that great of a defender, so he's kind of even. So if you're the Clippers, of course, your front court is the two stars of your team, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. But why not add Blake Griffin? You add depth. You probably want to get him that expensive. I think Blake Griffin's going back to the Clippers. That's my prediction right now. I see Blake Griffin going back to the LA Clippers, where, of course, he became, I wouldn't say on the court he was a superstar. Certainly off the court. He's in Los Angeles. He's the best dunker in the league for a while there. Lob City with Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. And, kind of became a celebrity. He was on, Comedy Central. And, that's what playing in LA can do for you. That's why you see all these athletes going to Los Angeles. Trevor Bauer and Matt Stafford and Jalen Ramsey. Like Mookie Betts. We see what it does for your career. So, but no, I actually see him going back to the Clippers. Now, I do believe the Clippers are the third best team in the West. I'm not backing off that until proven otherwise. Lakers the best team in the West. They are. Utah's not beating the Lakers. Utah will beat the Clippers if they meet up in the playoffs. I mean, they are. But I think Blake Griffin will give the Clippers some depth. He can still play. He's not prime Blake Griffin, but he can still play. He's a much better shooter now than he was when he was a Clipper. So I think this would actually work. I really do. I think this would work if he went back there. But we'll see what also happens, by the way, with Andre Drummond. I've heard that some teams have reached out to the Cavaliers about acquiring him. People forget Andre Drummond for the last few years has led the NBA in rebounds. That means something, right? That's a great accomplishment to be a multi-time leader in the NBA in rebounds. So we'll see if he gets traded or if he gets bought out by the Cavs. So those two guys especially will be the kind of the two to keep your attention on. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think Blake Griffin's going back to the Clippers. We'll find out in the next few days where he goes. He's got multiple teams interested according to multiple reports. So should be in the next 2-3 days at least. We'll see where he goes. So that should be interesting. But with that all said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining. Sorry I wasn't able to do it yesterday. Still kind of recovering from wisdom teeth surgery. Feeling great though. It was great to be back behind the mic, back in front of this camera, streaming on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. Talking about Dak Prescott, Drew Brees, Blake Griffin, the All-Star draft, and the NBA refs issue. We'll come back Monday. We'll discuss the All-Star game and all the big storylines in the NBA, and also Russell Wilson. There's some interesting stuff going on with that as well. So we'll see what happens. But with that said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Continue to be safe out there. God bless all of y'all. Peace out.